Thanks for joining me on today's self-guided heritage tour that will give you a brief glance back to some of Goulburn's fascinating history. All information has been sourced from www.goulburnaustralia.com.au. Mandelsons of Goulburn was built in 1839. Originally as the Goulburn Hotel, it was later renamed after its owner Nathan Mandelson. Mandelson's Hotel was once regarded as the best accommodation outside of Sydney. It was in Mandelson's ballroom where local businessmen met to establish the Sydney Railway Company. The building was home to the first telegraph station, as well as the first to be lit by gas in Goulburn. The Southern Railway Hotel, built by James Clifford in 1869, is one of the original 73 inns in Goulburn that has maintained much of its old world charm. The balcony over the footpath is also one of the few original verandas still remaining in the city. The railways were of enormous importance to Goulburn. They provided employment to our early residents and a safe, comfortable option for transportation to Sydney. The foundation stone of the railway station was laid on the 12th of May 1868, and the line was officially opened just over a year later. Since then, only minimal alterations have been made to the building. For a more detailed look at Goulburn Railway Station, check out my first video titled Goulburn, New South Wales. The Alpine Heritage Motel survives as the old accommodation wing of the Goulburn Coffee Club, a hotel that did not serve alcohol. Coffee places were built across the country as part of the temperance movement, encouraging people to abstain from alcohol. The building that houses the Argyle Emporium was Goulburn's old police station. Inside, the original jail cells remain. Due to Goulburn's rapid growth in the 1870s, this building proved inadequate, so the third and current courthouse was built. The courthouse was designed by James Barnett and opened in 1887 at a cost of £24,593, which is equivalent to $3.4 million in today's money. The Victorian, Italianate-styled building was touted as one of the most beautiful buildings in all of Her Majesty's dominions by the Chief of Justice of the Colonies. The building is still very much in use today, holding sessions of local, district, and Supreme Court. The Rogers Building was built in 1853 and is now home to Dimmies and Harvey Norman. It was built as a large country emporium for Jones & Co. They later became Furner & Jones and carried out extensive refurbishments before selling in 1901 to Rogers & Sons. The Post Office, 1880, built by Mr. F. Horn, is also designed by James Barnett. The original arch in the centre of the building features the head of Queen Victoria and was once used by coach and horses to access the yard behind. The 30-metre high clock tower was added by public demand a year after the building's completion and was originally illuminated at night by gas. More recently, the bell in the clock tower had not been rung for more than 20 years. Fortunately, in 2010, A clock enthusiast passing through inquired why it did not ring. He was allowed to look at the mechanisms and managed to get the chimes to, once again, toll on the hour. Next door is the Town Hall, 1887, a design by E.C. Manfred, built by William Wilkie for £3,425, which is approximately $500,000 in today's money. Opened in 1889, this classical revival building housed the city's local government offices for 99 years and today is used as a community services building. The Hibernian Hotel was one of Goulburn's original hotels, first licensed on the 6th of July 1850. In 1871, Dr. William Foxley Haley took over the building to use it as a dispensary for a short time. It was reopened as the Hibernian Hotel in 1880 and has been in continuous operation ever since. On the corner of Auburn and Verner Streets is the site of the former Commercial Banking Company of Sydney, the first bank in Goulburn from 1837. After being closed in 1844, along with all country branches, the Goulburn branch reopened a decade later, and 6 years after that, the building on the present site was built. It originally had verandas and balconies, but was remodeled in 1919. The granite pillars at the main entrance came from the Marulan Quarry. At the end of Vernon Street is the Catholic Church and next door the Old Cathedral. The current Catholic Church of St. Peter and Paul from 1890 was built around the original brick church, which was then demolished inside and taken out through the doors. It is believed to be the only green sandstone cathedral in the world, with the stone being sourced from a local quarry. The cathedral recently received a large restoration grant, which has led to the creation of the magnificent mosaic window honouring Caroline Chisholm and the installation of the 10-metre, 9-tonne spire in 2014. As per the cathedral's original design, all of this is in preparation for the installation of the Murphy bell, which was purchased from Dublin before the cathedral was built in the 1860s. current Goulburn Regional Conservatorium building was built as the Technical College, completed in 1901 at a cost of £6,789, which is approximately $1 million in today's money. From 1913 to 1927, the building was used as Goulburn High School. St. Saviour's Anglican Cathedral is one of the most important buildings in Goulburn. This is because towns used to be named cities based on whether or not they had a cathedral. A cathedral at the time was any church with a diocese, which is a district with a bishop. On the 14th of March 1863, Queen Victoria wrote her last ever royal letters patent, establishing the Diocese of Goulburn, which makes Goulburn the first Australian inland city. 8 years later, plans were made for the Gothic Revival Cathedral, which is now being considered one of the most beautiful in Australia. It was built in line with the original city, so each wall corresponds with north, south, east and west. A century after the cathedral was built, the bell tower was added. The bell tower was part of the original design, as was an additional 60-metre spire. Inside is the only 12-bell country peal in the Southern Hemisphere, with the largest bell, named Sirius, weighing in at just over 1 tonne, as well as 23 stained glass windows and the pipe organ with 2,253 pipes. Montague Street contains a number of different architectural styles of buildings, many of which were built as offices for solicitors from back in the days when people flocked to the city for their christenings, marriages and funerals in our 2 cathedrals, also known as being hatched, matched and dispatched. The beautiful Elmsley Chambers, 1935 to 1936, was built for pastoralist Frank Leigh. The colourful facade pays homage to the flamboyant personality and his once extensive stock and station holdings across southern New South Wales. The old fire station, 1890, still has the original bell tower, but the bell is on loan to St Nicholas's Church in North Goulburn. The fire bell weighs 750 pounds and was cast in England, originally planned for 2 churches in Australia, which were both, ironically, burnt down before the bell ended up at the fire station. Number 9 Montague Street was built in 1902 for A.M. Betts solicitors, once New South Wales' oldest living and practising solicitor in his late 80s. Number 5 to 7 was built in 1915 in an academic revival style. AMP Building 1928 was designed by Wright and Appleby Architects. The building is an example of neoclassical Italian commercial architecture. 3 solid cedar doors and thin Flemish bond brickwork give this building an interesting facade. The Goddess of Peace and Plenty adorns the top of the building and is by W.P. Mackintosh. The Latin inscription means a certain friend in uncertainty. The Goulburn Post building has been restored to the original 1935 look from an old photograph. Goulburn Herald was one of Australia's first country newspapers, later incorporated into the Golden Evening Penny Post. It was then renamed the Golden Evening Post during the war when the cost rose higher than a penny. The last afternoon print was in October 1977. Today, the paper is still published as the Goulburn Post. In 1875, on the corner of Clifford and Auburn Streets, a building once stood owned by Mr. T.N. Jacobs, a saddler. Mr. Jacob installed a life-size wooden white horse on top of his saddlery to increase his sales. After closing down, the building was licensed to Tom Jacob, establishing the White Horse Hotel in 1885. Unfortunately, in 1910, it was among a number of hotels delicensed as a result of the reduction vote in the liquor referendum and was closed a year later. The premises was renovated to be occupied by various banks until the 1930s when it was demolished. The Colonial Mutual Life Building, 1933, designed by architects Hennessy and Hennessy, was built in its place. Colonial Mutual Life operated here until the office closed in 1979. The site then enjoyed a stint as a local radio station studio. On the corner of Auburn and Market Street is a site where Norman's department store once stood. It was opened in 1888 as a branch of its London-based company with 18-year-old John Norman at the helm. Norman's store was the go-to store at the time for imported goods, with direct instructions from the London factories to send out new goods to the Goulburn store the moment fashions were created. John Norman was mayor from 1899 to 1900, while the business continued under the direction of his son, John Edward Norman. Norman ceased trading in 1982. The building itself remained, leased to the first to the Donohue's Hardware, then to Clint's Crazy Bargains, both of which adjoined Bryant's Bakery. Just down the road you'll see the Fireside Inn, which was built in 1934 by J.E. Norman, and it's reminiscent of his travels through England. Unfortunately, the store burnt down in 1999 due to a fire in the bakery. Today, of the original buildings, only the Fireside Inn remains. Next door is a Victorian terrace townhouse with an attic built for a local merchant during the 1860s. Neighbouring is the Goulburn Club, which was built in 1848 and was once the medical hall. It was here that Dr. Wall invented and manufactured his famous baking powder. In 2003, the veranda was built to the original plans drawn by E.C. Manfred circa 1904. To the right of the Goulburn Club is a stoneway arch which once led to the Bull and Woodward stores and warehouse at the rear. The memory of the early storekeepers is kept alive with their initials B and W decorated in the keystone. Belmore Park was originally the town's market square. It was once surrounded by a white picket fence, and here residents could sell their livestock, farm, produce, and merchandise. The park became a botanical garden, and for 16 years it had a small zoo with emus, deer, peacock, and kangaroos. The park was named Belmore after Lord and Lady Belmore, who planted the oak tree in the centre of the park in honour of the railway opening in Goulburn in 1869. An extensive tour of the park is available in my first video titled Goulburn, New South Wales.